Working remotely has been on the rise during COVID-19 pandemic. Research has shown that hiring managers expect nearly half of their workers to be working remotely over the next decade. While many trends fit into this way of organizing work, managing the work effectively will be the key of success of your organization globally. And did you know that part of virtual management is how to lead a virtual meeting? Welcome you to weekly Thursday live stream of EIY public speaking with the topic how to lead a virtual meeting this week. Good evening everyone. My name is Nguyen and I'm the founder of EIY Public Speaking Center. I will be facilitating this live stream section and introduce an important guest, Mr. Aaron Beverly, the 2019 World Champion of Public Speaking, will join us this live stream section and share his insights on how to lead a virtual meeting. Hello, Aaron. Would you like to say hello to EIY Public Speaking learners and guests?
Yes, hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. EIY Public Speaking is organizing the weekly live stream section from 7:30 until 8:30 p.m. every Thursday night. And there will be more valuable live stream sections consisting of several different topics for corporate professionals who are engaged in career development. And please consider liking the EIY public speaking page so we can share our live stream values with the other benefited people. And regarding our live stream agenda tonight, there will be some questions which were presented to Mr. Aaron Beverly in advance of the section. And many of those questions will be concerned with the issues previously identified by EIY public speaking learners. And if you have any follow-up questions or you would like to seek Mr. Aaron's advice for your presentations, just feel free to comment on our live stream here. And the first question that I would like to ask Aaron is, Aaron, could you please share with us what is virtual meeting?
Yeah, sure. A virtual meeting is right what the name entails. It is a meeting that you will have online. The medium changes, but not much else will change when it comes to meeting format and formality. But it's just a change of the medium. There's not much else different from a regular meeting.
I see. It means that just between the channel, right? We are moving from offline to online.
Correct. Yeah. And while there are, and actually I will backtrack a little bit. So even though it is going to change in the medium, there won't be major changes to what you do formally, but there will be some small nuances, some small changes that you need to employ and think about when you are having a virtual meeting. So this is what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting, Aaron. And the second question I would like to ask you is that what are some of our challenges when running a virtual meeting?
I think the biggest challenge that you're going to run into when you're holding a virtual meeting is just your technical setup. When you are having a virtual meeting, you are going to have to worry about your camera, you're going to have to worry about your sound, you're going to have to worry about your internet connection. All of these things are not going to worry you if you are having an offline meeting because everybody's in person, everybody's talking at a table, and there's really no need for too much technology support. But now this is all technology support. So if you don't have a stable internet connection and you're in the middle of an important meeting, you have the chance of disconnecting at any moment, and then you may miss out on a critical piece of information. This is something that I have experienced firsthand. So for people who don't know me, I am the current world champion of public speaking for Toastmasters, but I'm also a project manager by trade. I work at a company called JP Morgan Chase.
Ah, I see.
Yep.
Is it your full-time job?
Yes, that is my full-time job.
Yeah, I see.
And working there, I have been a project manager there, and I have been having meetings online for quite a while now. And I've seen the challenges of people who don't have stable connections, and they all of a
Yeah.
sudden drop the connection and they miss out on important information. So when they come back on, we have to then backtrack and talk again about what we just discussed. So internet connection, very important.
It's just like a review section, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I see. So it means it's mainly about the technical issue that we usually have when we have the virtual meeting, right?
Yeah.
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 Mm. Apart from technical problem when having a virtual meeting, is there any other challenges we may have when coming to the virtual meeting?
Yes. Another challenge that you are definitely going
Yeah.
to run into are distractions,
Mm.
especially during this time because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Everyone is working from home, and that means even parents are working from home, pet owners are working from home.
Yeah.
So when you're on these meetings with them, you may have a chance of a child coming into the camera, or a child being heard over the sound,
Mm.
or a
Yeah.
dog or a cat. I've seen one instance where a cat
Mm.
just commandeered the laptop or the computer that the person was speaking because they wanted
Mm.
attention, but it totally distracted them from the meeting. And
Yeah.
those are the different types of challenges that you now run into because everyone's speaking from home. So now you're going to run into home distractions and home challenges.
Mm. Yeah, I see. So you have different personal distractions from home. That is one of another challenges that we may face when coming to the virtual meeting. And some of our learners also asked me this question, Aaron, because they just feel disengaged whenever they have the virtual meeting. Because sometimes that we just seem so bored when we have the virtual meeting, we don't really use our facial expression, voice at all, in order to engage our listeners in the conversation. So, as a word Jamie, or public speaking, what do you think about that? And how can we increase our engagement in the conversation in the virtual meeting?
Yes, that's definitely going to be a challenge because
Yeah,
when we're speaking in person, we rely a lot on eye contact and
yeah,
facial expressions. But
mm,
when you're on camera, you don't necessarily get that. For
yeah,
instance, right now with us talking, it
mm,
looks like I'm giving eye contact to you directly. But the thing is, I am looking directly into a camera lens as I'm talking to you. I actually don't see your face. I only see it near the bottom of my screen here, but I'm not exactly seeing your face. And you'll see if I actually look at your face,
yeah,
it's going to look as if I'm not giving you eye contact, right?
yeah,
So
sure.
this now becomes a challenge because
Mm,
we're so used as speakers having
mm,
that eye contact and engagement, and now we
mm,
lose some of that. But
yep,
one thing that you will definitely need to be conscious of is
mm,
your facial expressions, or are
yeah,
your
sure.
facial expressions. So you're
Mm,
going to have to really be mindful of the faces that
mm,
you make because it's all still going to be captured. People will still see your face,
yeah,
even though you
yeah,
won't be able to see their responses to your facial
mm,
expressions.
yeah.
So it's more of a one-way street now.
I can see that. Nonverbal communication accounts for around 93% of your communication success, such as your body language and also your voice. And I just realized that with this kind of virtual communication, we just can only show our face and also show our eye contact in order to engage with our listeners. Can you please share with us some ways we can use our facial expression in order to increase the engagement in the conversation?
Yes, I
Mm,
think the main way that you can increase your engagement through video is
mm,
to obviously you need to use the limited body movement that you have when you're on camera.
yeah,
So there's not a lot of hand movements that I'm going to be making as I'm speaking on camera right now. If I do, it's going to be very distracting because my hands are just constantly in the
yeah,
frame. But one way that you can be engaging is simply to smile and just keep looking at
mm,
that camera
yeah,
lens because that is equal to giving proper eye contact. So your face all of a sudden
yeah.
becomes a star now. So smile.
Mm, mm, I see. So it means the first thing we're gonna do is just basically smile, right?
Yep. So smile and just
Mm,
at the very least, don't. frown and have a
mm,
sour face as you're hosting your meeting, because that will set the tone for your meeting. And sometimes you may even
yeah.
get called out for it.
Yeah, right. Because you set an example for that.
Exactly.
Awesome. That's very useful. The next question is that what are some preparation steps we need to do before the meeting in order to conduct a successful virtual meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
The first thing that you absolutely need to do, we talked about
Mm,
it a little bit before, but as you are setting up your meeting, as you're getting ready for your
mm,
meeting, make sure
yep.
that all of your technology is working properly. So that means
So,
logging onto the platform a little bit early, just to make
mm,
sure that you are able to be seen, that you are able to be heard, that your
mm,
internet is stable. A
mm,
quick tip for those of you who host online meetings regularly:
mm.
you may want to have a
So,
Ethernet connection. Yep.
mm,
And that way it's going
mm,
to have a more stable connection than a Wi-Fi. The other
I
thing that I
see.
would recommend for you to do as you are setting
Mm,
up your meetings, you will want to have headphones if you can, because one thing that can happen is that when you are speaking and somebody else has
mm,
their line open, you
mm,
may get an echo. So if you are getting an echo, it could be because there needs to be somebody who has to put on their headphones, because the sound is basically going from their computer and
mm,
going back into their microphone. So it
mm,
can become a bit of a distraction.
I see. Like echoing, right?
Correct.
Got you, got you. That is about the technical things that we need to prepare before the virtual meeting. And apart from the technical things, do we need to prepare other things, Aaron?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Mm,
So this is where we get to the point where it's not going to be much different from how you normally conduct a business meeting
mm,
or any meeting in general.
yeah,
You first want to make sure that you have an agenda.
mm,
You want to
mm,
make sure that it is going to cover all of the points that you need to talk about in your meeting.
mm,
You want to make sure that you circulate this information
yeah,
to the audience beforehand.
mm,
And that is key, because your agenda is going to be your best friend. As a project
mm,
manager who holds a lot of meetings, I cannot tell you how many times an agenda has been a saving grace for me,
mm,
because one thing that you will find that, especially in a business meeting,
yeah,
you'll tend to veer off topic, and you need to find a way to get back to the agenda. If you have it formalized, if you have it written out, it is much easier to steer the conversation back toward your agenda. So
yeah,
make
I
sure
see.
that you have your agenda set beforehand.
Yeah, got you. So stick with the time of the agenda and also the topics in the agenda, right?
Correct.
See, very clear. And hello everyone, I think it's time for us to comment any questions you may have to Aaron, and then we will help to address all of the questions you may have during the time that you lead a virtual meeting, or maybe that you lead a virtual team, because that's a trend that our world is heading to right now. The next question that I would like to ask you is that how can we utilize our time efficiently during the meeting? Because some of the challenges we just mentioned before, some people they may haven't prepared for the agenda, or they haven't prepared for their point to share, or they they, we have some technical problems that we don't
Yeah.
really use our time efficiently. So what are some ways we can utilize our time?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm,
This is something, again, that you can do beforehand. So we talked
mm,
about setting up the agenda. So definitely you want to make sure you have an agenda, because that's going to be one of the tools you use to keep yourself on track. But
yep.
if you have other people who are going to be speaking in the meeting, what you
Mm,
want them to be able to do, you want them to be able to use their time efficiently. You want to make sure that they have the talking points that they need to speak to. You
mm,
want to prep them beforehand. so that once they get to
Mm,
the meeting, they're not surprised or they're not unprepared. You want to prepare them as far in advance as you possibly can.
mm,
So that's one thing. And then we talked about limiting distractions. So
yep.
as you are getting onto a meeting platform,
Mm,
the perfect example right now is Zoom. One thing that I do know about Zoom is that if you are the host of that Zoom conference call, you
yep.
will be able to mute all of the other participants
Sure.
and you can control who is being heard and who's not. This is going
Mm,
to be very critical because if you don't turn off everybody's microphone, even though we say,
mm,
everybody, please mute yourself,
mm.
everybody doesn't always mute their phones or they forget to mute their phones if they finish talking. So
I see.
ensuring that people who aren't talking are muted will
Mm,
be really critical in decreasing the amount of distractions you have, and that will help
mm,
you run your meeting more efficiently because you don't have to stop to make sure that the distraction is dealt with.
Got you. It means that we may want to set some red rules, or we have some adjustment in the way that we mute the other people right before they join the meeting.
Yep, yep. And then another thing
Mm,
that you can do is we talked about making sure that people are prepared ahead of time for
mm,
their talking points. You also want to make sure that you give them a time limit on how
mm.
long they will have to speak.
Yeah,
So
sure.
for my meetings, I will tell people, hey,
Mm,
we only can give you 10 minutes to talk about this point. Do you think that will be
mm,
enough time? Do you need more
mm.
time? Do you think you
Yeah.
can utilize less time? So
Mm,
this is going to be really critical in helping you minimize the amount of people who go off topic. If you tell them that we
understand.
need to stick to this certain point in this certain time
Mm,
frame, it'll be a lot easier for them to condense their information. And then the last
yeah.
thing that I'll give you for now is
Mm,
that as you are having your meeting, you
mm,
want to make sure that you tell everybody upfront. So you want to set the rules beforehand.
yeah. Sure.
So you want to tell them that we're going to talk about these points, and
Mm,
you want to make sure that those points are listed in the order of importance.
mm,
But you set the rules up front that we'll talk about this. They're in the order of importance. This is the reason why we need to do them in this order. And when you
mm.
set those rules up front, you can avoid going off topic or skipping topics.
Sure. That's very useful, Aaron, because usually we just only prioritize the time, but we just forget to prioritize which point is more important than the other point, and then we just off the topic. And at the end of the meeting, we haven't discussed about the important point yet.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's a very useful one. So we need to prioritize which one is more important, and also we need to consider about the time for each point, right?
Yep.
Sure. Since our topic is about leading a virtual meeting, so my next question is that how can a leader facilitate a virtual meeting?
Yes. So again, we've talked about setting up things beforehand. So
Mm,
as the leader, you should be the one setting up the agenda or delegating the task to somebody, but you should know what
yeah,
the agenda is as the leader.
sure.
And as the leader, you have to be able to tell people, hey, we're going off topic. We need to come
Mm,
back to the topic at hand. Or you
mm,
need to tell people that you're going over time. We need to make
mm,
sure that we discuss other points. So, as the
yeah,
leader, it's really important. And this
mm,
isn't just applicable to a virtual meeting, but just meetings in general.
yeah,
You really want
mm,
to make sure that as the leader, you
mm,
are making sure that everything is on topic, that everything is on time. And also, as the leader, you want to set an example. So, you don't want to be the reason why you go off topic. You don't want to be the reason why you go over time.
see. So as a leader, we need to set an example, not to be off the topic first, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You lose a lot of credibility if you're the one that is committing that crime.
Yeah, because this is your rules already.
Exactly.
I see. And one of the challenges I usually have when facilitating a meeting is that how can I engage with the other listeners because I'm not pretty sure that they are understanding what I'm saying or not. Or
Hmm.
their first expression doesn't seem like they engaged in our conversation or they didn't show their emotion at all. But for the face-to-face meeting, we can understand each other body language easily.
Yeah.
So as a leader, how can we make sure that we understand the other people, they are clear about what we are saying, and also how can we create humor or some recreational activities for our team members in order to build up our team building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something that I use not necessarily for my business meetings, but
Mm,
in general Toastmaster meetings. If
yeah.
I'm leading or if I'm performing a keynote or a
Yeah.
workshop, something that I
Mm,
do to just a simple task that you can do to engage your audience is
yeah.
when you're giving a certain point and you want to ensure that people understand, ask them
Mm,
to put it in the comments.
yeah.
Simple yes or no, whether they understood the point, or you can just give them a yes or no if they understand uh,
Mm,
a task that you have given them. So just
yep.
having a simple comment that they can put in, something quick,
Mm,
will be really
mm,
useful. I also put in activities where I ask the audience a question and they type in a sentence or two.
mm,
For instance, I ask them what do they think is the reason why people fear public speaking, and I allow them time to type in different answers. And as they're typing in
oh,
answers, I'm reading these answers back and confirming that, okay, I see your response. And that way it keeps them engaged that way.
mm,
But as getting back to the topic of leading a
mm,
business meeting,
yep.
one thing that you can do as the leader of your meeting is to simply ask.
Mm,
So you can ask people if they understand. So you can still use the virtual meeting as a way to
mm,
have a conversation. So in a
yep.
meeting, you can still have conversations. That much doesn't change. It's just
Mm,
again, only the medium is changing here. The
yep.
engagement will change a bit, but for the most
Yep.
part, it's still going to be the same. So you can still ask questions if people understand. You can ask
See.
specifically to people, say, hey, Lanan, do you understand what I'm talking
Mm,
about? And then you would then be able to respond.
mm,
So that's just something simple that you can do. It's just as simple as asking a question.
sure. Yep. So it means that just clarify whether they understand or not, right? And also sometimes you can engage them by some activities in the meeting to make
Yep.
sure that they can engage in that.
Yep. And actually, too,
Mm,
another thing that you can do is before
mm,
the meeting starts, before you get to the actual agenda, you
yeah.
can put in a little icebreaker activity just
Mm,
to get everybody loose and get everybody to have fun before you get down to
mm.
business.
Ah, I see. What are some of the icebreakers activities you usually conduct?
So, one activity that my team has done in
Mm.
work, we do two truths and a lie.
Ah, I see.
So we tell people three things about us, and they have to figure out which one is the lie out of the three.
Mm, I see.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe that's actually something we could play right now.
Yeah.
So I'll give you two truths and a lie, and you have to figure out which one
Mm,
is the lie.
I'm just wondering that for truth and lie, usually that we just can only conduct in a small group, right? Because if you had a big group for around 50 people, how can we conduct the truth and lie?
Yeah. so it's so yeah, you don't even need a large group of people, or you can use it for a small group of people. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's a really simple game, and it's really easy to set up,
Mm,
and you can just have it in this one-on-one conversations. So I'll
mm,
give you an example. So
yeah.
I'll give you three things, and you tell me
Yeah.
which one do you think is the lie. So
Sure. Just
I had three sets of teeth growing up instead of just two.
mm,
I have swam in shark infested waters, and I went skydiving. So which one
mm.
out of those three do you think is the lie?
The last one.
That I went skydiving?
Yeah.
So I actually have gone skydiving, and I actually have swam in shark infested waters. So that was during my sorry. I have not swam in shark infested waters. Let me correct that.
Oh, I see.
So that's the lie. I have never swam in shark infested anything that is going to be near me. So no sharks, no anything. No.
I see.
Maybe a small fish, but just a small fish. But I actually have had 3 sets of teeth growing up. So that's my 2 truths and a lie. And it really works because it helps bring more direct engagement. So you just get to know more personally. And again, that's not even a game that's just limited to virtual. You can use that game in any setting. So whether you're having an offline meeting or a virtual meeting.
Sure. Definitely. After that game, you can engage your team members so much.
Yep, exactly.
And you can discover each other personal life as well.
Yep.
You just give me an idea to conduct the online workshop that I am going to do it right now. No, not really right now, but a few days later.
Right.
So, yeah. The next question is that how can we end our meeting effectively?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this one you have, well, there are 2 ways that you can end your meeting efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So you first tell people that we have a certain amount of time left. Now, this is going to be really important if you haven't talked about all of your topics yet and you're running out of time. So as the leader of the meeting, as the host of the meeting, you really want to make sure that people understand that there are topics that have not yet been discussed, if there haven't been topics that have not been discussed.
Yep.
And that you want to make sure that they are either put on the agenda next time, or you want to ask if they are comfortable with extending the time of the meeting so that we can talk about the topics that have not been discussed. Now, if they decide that it's not going to be extended, you then just briefly go over any of the actions that you had.
Yeah.
So if you, as you discussed your meeting, you go through a summary and you go through the different actions and you confirm everything that everybody needs to do. And then you talk about what hasn't been discussed and what will be on the agenda for perhaps the next meeting or in an email. But at the end of your meeting, you always want to make sure that you distribute a meeting summary or what we call meeting minutes. And that way people are reminded again of, okay, this is what we talked about. This is what I need to do in order to progress a project or take a next step, et cetera, et cetera. And that is how you definitely want to end your meeting. You want to make sure you end with everybody knowing exactly what was discussed and what they need to do.
Sure, definitely. It means that we understand about the next step, right? Gotcha. Technology is just taken into account, and what can we do with technology setup and mishaps? I think that this question has been addressed by you before.
Yeah. So again, you just want to make sure that your technology is working, that it's in order, and that means getting on beforehand. So those are really the technology aspects that you really want to take a look at. We can go even more technical and say that you can get a 1080p camera that's HD quality, but that's not really necessary. The main thing that you want to ensure is that you are being heard and that you are being seen. That's the most important when it comes to technology. As well as your internet connection.
Yep, I see. So it's more about like we need to prepare for that.
Yep, exactly.
I just realized that mainly the main problem we usually have when we have the virtual meeting that is about technology or internet connection. And do you think that virtual meeting will become the common things just right after this pandemic?
Yeah, I believe that we were moving that way even before the pandemic. I think the pandemic just expedited how fast we adopted this technology. So now that we have gone through this and people are logging in from home, people are holding virtual meetings, or people are holding more virtual meetings, I should say. I think people
mm,
are now seeing that, okay, this can work and this can probably work long term. And then
mm,
if it can work long term,
yeah,
you can probably save a lot of money on travel and
mm,
people going to different locations, because now you don't necessarily need to be in person all of the time.
mm, yeah,
You can utilize a virtual meeting, and if you have a good internet connection and
mm,
if you have a good camera and a good microphone that you can be seen and heard,
mm,
you may not need to do as much traveling as you did before. So I think that the world is definitely going to embrace this technology more than they
mm,
already have. And it will definitely become more normal to work from home, work remotely, and utilize virtual settings and
mm.
virtual meetings.
Yep, yep, I can see that. I can see that working from home will become a trend, but pretty soon in the world, not only
Yeah,
in the developed countries. And
absolutely.
have you ever seen any advantages and also disadvantages when working from home?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll definitely start with the disadvantages. When you are working from home, it is it is only then that you realize how many chores need to be
Yeah.
done in the house.
Mm,
It's when you're working from home and you think, oh man, my kitchen could really use a cleaning right now. Maybe I should go and clean that for maybe 10 minutes. So you
yeah.
run into a lot of home distractions now,
Yeah.
especially if you have kids and the
Mm,
kids are home. It's going to be a lot tougher to concentrate unless you
mm,
have them in a certain area. If you have an agreement with your
yeah.
spouse or another adult that can
Mm,
watch your kids while you're working, you run into a lot of home distractions. So that is probably the number one disadvantage to working from
yeah.
home, is the amount of distractions that you now get. For a
Mm,
lot of people, it's also a disadvantage because they don't
mm,
necessarily have the same
yeah.
setup at home that they have at work.
Mm,
So it could mean that they become less efficient with their performance. For instance, at my job location, I actually have two monitors that I use, but now I'm basically working from my laptop. And at first, this
mm,
was really hard for me to get used to because I'm used to working with two really big monitors. And since I
oh,
don't have these monitors anymore, I have to utilize just this small one, and it's just one. So where before I could put things on two screens and see and read two different
mm,
documents, I can now only read one at a time on one screen. So
yeah.
that is one disadvantage as well. And then
Mm,
the other one that I would say is that it's more mental, where
mm,
it's harder to differentiate work and life.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So now it's a lot easier to bring your work home because you are working from home. And sometimes you'll notice that you're working later and later hours and you're still working, where normally you would have already left your job location and traveled back home.
Mm,
So you really have to keep in mind of how much time you are actually working. You
yeah.
want to make sure that you are still practicing your
Mm,
mental health, and you want to make sure that you're in a good mental state.
mm, yeah. For this kind of question, it may be not related to the topic today, but can you predict some kinds of new businesses may have after this pandemic, since we're moving from working on offline to working online? And what are some kinds of new businesses may happen in order to resolve the disadvantage of working from home?
That's a really good question.
Mm,
I do think that there will definitely be opportunities for people who are working from home, but I think a
yeah.
lot of the biggest opportunities are going to be services that already exist but aren't
Mm,
necessarily utilized as much. For
yeah.
instance, we talked about the talking about
Yeah.
working from home and how you can have distractions with children.
Mm,
So I'm pretty sure that child services are going to increase if we increase the amount of times that we work from home. So you'll probably see more daycares, you'll probably see more day camps where children
mm,
can go and spend time when they're not in school.
mm.
So that will be one service that I think will increase. Then another service that will increase, and this is more directly tied to this direct question, and that's just help with online meetings. There
Yeah.
are a lot of people who don't know how to utilize these social platforms and these virtual platforms. So you'll
Yeah.
need somebody who can guide them through it. So in a way, it's the same business model because it's still coaching and it's still teaching, but it's put into a different light now. So now it's a more of a focus on how to hold these virtual meetings. So I think there will be more businesses that will pop up helping people to get set up with this, at least in the early stages. I think the as this ages more and people are using this technology more, I don't think there will be as many people who need help. But for right now, especially with everybody just thrown into this,
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of need to teach people. So teachers who are going to teach people about these platforms are going to see a big increase in their business, I would think.
Yeah. So that's why that we try to capture that trend as well.
Yeah,
We,
exactly. Smart move.
um, in our center, we have a course to teach people how to conduct an online meeting and lead a virtual team. And we believe that those problems need to be tackled.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And another just out of topic question that is, since you're also conducting training, public speaking, and also public speaking training and coaching, and how acceptable are people in America in terms of moving from offline to online? Because in the past maybe that you conduct the public speaking training offline, right? But right now you might need to move it to online, and how acceptable the learners are.
Yeah. I think for the most part,
Yeah.
Americans have embraced technology pretty easily.
Mm,
I there's definitely a bigger learning gap
yep.
with older Americans,
Yep.
but I think the younger generation, so your Generation X and Generation Y, millennials and Generation Z, we're pretty much used to this technology, so it's not as big of a learning curve for us. For Generation Z, they grew up with technology, so it's really easy for them to adopt this. For millennials, it could be just a short learning curve. For Generation X, probably a steeper learning curve than the other two, but they still can catch on relatively quickly because we all grew up in the age where this technology was pretty prominent. But for older generations, like baby boomers, they're really used to just face to face meetings. They went through their entire careers with just having face to face meetings, and the most technology that they probably used was the telephone. So I think that's where you're going to see the biggest difference. And I don't think that's just for America either. I think that's just for worldwide. So the older you are, the less likely you are to be used to this type of technology. And now that you're forced to use it, you're going to be forced to learn it. So I think that's what's going to be the biggest challenge for America and the world, is just the age gap and the how do you get the older populations to learn and embrace this technology fully.
I see. It means that they still welcome me to learn public speaking online, right?
Oh yes, and in regards to learning public speaking directly online, I think that has been in play for a long time now. You have a lot of online public speaking platforms.
Sure.
Now, the challenge with public speaking is that when we are teaching people public speaking, we're teaching them public speaking to speak in front of a live audience. So, this is going to be an area where you are going to be teaching people a skill virtually, but the end result isn't going to necessarily be virtual.
Yep.
So you will have to give people practical examples and you have to
mm,
give them really practical tips when you're teaching them these public speaking techniques, because they won't be able to practice it with you online as their coach. So they will have to practice it offline in front of
mm,
a live audience. So I think that's already in existence for a lot of
mm,
public speaking coaches, and that's one of the challenges that's already existed. I think as we move forward with technology, you're going to see a lot more of that, and that challenge is just going to increase because you still will
mm.
need to speak in front of a live audience when it comes to public speaking.
Sure. Yeah. And actually, that right now we also do public speaking as well, not only just personal conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, I see. Actually, that I just found in the world, they have a tool called virtual speech. If you just might want to search about that, they have the platform in order to create for our learners to wear the VR class, and then it's just like a real audience appearing in front of your eyes, and you just practice in front of that. And
Hmm.
that is one of the ways that really address the problem you just mentioned before. That is about practicing in front of
Yeah.
the real audience.
Yeah. I've actually heard a lot of, I actually have heard a bit about that.
Mm,
There are virtual platforms, so you can actually put on the virtual headset and you
sure.
can actually see an audience in front of you, so a virtual audience in front of you. That
Mm,
is one way that I think it's a technique that people have used to get over the fear
mm,
of public speaking, but
yep,
you still do lose a lot of so you lose body language because unless you
mm,
are actually hooking yourself up to a whole virtual reality set, it's hard to capture your body movement,
yep,
but you can still get the visual of looking at an audience and
yes,
speaking to an audience. And I think
mm,
that does go a long way. So, do I think that it will replace the full public speaking? I don't think it's quite there yet. I think there
mm,
needs to be a lot more advancement in technology in terms of having your body movement included. I think there have been people that utilize holograms to do public speaking. I've only heard of very few cases about that, but that's one
yep,
case where you can actually see the person's body movement. But that's that's
mm,
probably a few years down the line from now. But
yep,
I don't think it's going to replace it, but it can definitely be used to teach and learn. Definitely.
yep, sure. Just because of I think that it needs to be more advanced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Another question we just come to that is, Mr. Beverly, we have the privilege to know you as one of the most talented public speakers in the world. My question is, she just gave you a compliment.
Thank you very much.
How does the knowledge and skills you gain in mastering public speaking actually help you to lead an effective online meeting and also offline as well?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll start with online. There are a lot of skills that are transferable
Mm, yeah, sure.
when you're thinking about public speaking.
Mm,
It's just that you have to change how you think about it. So, for instance, we talked about eye contact. As a public speaker, I know that eye contact is extremely important.
yeah.
It's really important just to have the perception of direct eye contact. So if you're
Mm,
in a large live audience, you'll want to provide eye contact in the most of the directions of the audience. So you're not
yeah.
necessarily making direct eye contact with each specific person,
Mm,
but it you have the perception of giving eye contact to
yeah.
a specific person. So
Mm,
perception is key, which is why I then go back to the point about looking at directly at the camera lens, because that gives the perception of direct eye contact. So
yeah.
knowing the importance of eye contact as a public speaker in general helped me
Mm,
realize what I needed to do in order to give proper eye contact even in an online platform. And it's the same
yeah.
with any type of virtual speech that I do. A lot of the skills are transferable. So I still want to
Mm,
make sure that I have proper facial expressions. I still want to
mm,
make sure that, of course, my story makes sense and that it's structured properly. But One tip that I would give you if you're giving a speech or telling a story, there are
Mm,
certain things that you can do to
yep.
enhance the experience and
Mm,
make it seem more real. So, for instance, now that we are in this setting, the tone is going to be more conversational. So, when you're on an online platform, it becomes a bit more conversational, it becomes a bit more personal because
mm,
it's going to be as if I'm talking directly to you.
yep.
So, for instance, we're having this interview right now, and
Mm,
right now we're broadcasting out to a much larger audience, but this is really a conversation between you and me and whoever is the third person that's listening from the comfort of their own home. So
yep.
it's a conversation now. So there are
Mm,
some things that you can do to make it seem a little bit more conversational. So you
mm,
still tell your stories, and one tip that I have given people is that similar to how you have a conversation, and I'm doing it right now, even though I haven't given the tip. You tend to look away from them sometimes to remember things,
yeah.
and this helps just keep the speech more natural.
Natural.
It helps it feel more conversational, and it's just something that's
Yeah.
really small that you really don't notice until
Mm,
I mentioned it just now. But in our
yep.
casual conversations, this is what we do. We don't steadily give eye to eye to the person we're talking to
Mm,
the entire time. To be honest,
yep.
if I had somebody that did that, I would think they were a little bit creepy. But so so just looking away from time to time, keeping it conversational. Those are again tips that I've learned from just
Mm,
as a public speaker that I've just translated over to
mm,
this platform.
yep.
But that's not necessarily for an actual business meeting. That's more so just general public speaking and having conversations. But the same rules apply. A lot of these skills are transferable.
Yep. One of the quick points you just had mentioned, which is about transferable skill. And some of the people just said to me that just only once a lifetime they need to study public speaking or they need to conduct a public speech. So it's unnecessary to study public speaking. But actually, if we can accumulate public speaking skills, we it can be transferable and we can transfer that skill into so many opportunities because most of the day we need to interact and communicate with other people, and if we can use our public speaking skill as a transferable skill in order to persuade or to influence other people, that is a huge success in your career, right?
Absolutely. I would
Yeah.
say that public speaking is the best return on investment. So, at public speaking education, the best return on investment because it
Mm,
doesn't cost a lot of money to learn,
yeah.
but it can give you so much benefit.
Mm. How does it contribute to your life success so far?
Yeah. So, obviously, outside of the world championship of public speaking,
Mm,
just increasing my public speaking skills, it's the reason why I was able to get a job at JP Morgan. I
mm,
was able to tell people that, hey, I know how to speak to people, I know how to lead meetings. That helped me get into the door at JP Morgan. It
yeah.
also helped me to get my current job as a project manager. I use my public speaking skills to
Mm,
showcase what I could do from a public speaking standpoint, but I also showcased the skills that I learned in the organization that I'm a part of, Toastmasters International. So I
mm,
learned how to organize a meeting. I learned how to facilitate that meeting.
mm,
And those skills were transferable to my project management role. So even though I
mm,
didn't have direct project management experience, I
yeah.
was able to showcase that I had those skills.
Mm,
So that has been public speaking has been a huge benefit to my life, and it's really helped me to express myself more. Right now, I'm doing more videos online on YouTube. And if you're interested, you can follow me at Aaron W. Beverly.
sure.
That's my name. But
Mm,
that's another form of public speaking.
mm,
And the skills that I learned from writing my speeches for a live speech, I now take those same principles and I use them for writing my scripts for my videos. So I still make sure that I'm on a topic. I'm still making sure that I have a central message. I'm still make sure that I'm providing a value to whoever my audience will be. So all of that is transferable, and that's everything that I learned from public speaking.
Mm, I can see that public speaking contributes like a huge success to your professional career, right?
Absolutely.
Yep, I can see that. And another question we have is that what makes you a world become a world champion of public speaking?
So this is a very subjective question. It really depends on who you are. One thing that I would advise you to not do is try to copy a previous world champion of public speaking. You really
Yeah.
want to be unique. You want to be yourself. One
Yep.
of the things that I tried to do every single, well, I wouldn't say every single year because I had to learn, but
Mm,
for most of the years that I competed, I really set a goal to try to be myself on stage.
mm,
I really wanted to show that I was a unique person, and you are not going to be a unique person if you are basically copying and pasting
mm,
what previous people have done before you. Try to
yep.
do something different. I
Mm,
remember that one of the things that I said I wanted to be different when I gave my speech. I
mm,
wanted to just have a different attire. So I didn't want to
yep.
dress like everybody else had done in the past.
Mm,
So if you saw my world championship speech in 2019, you
yep.
will saw that I came out in an Indian garment. So
Right.
it's called the kurta, and
Yep.
that it's a formal attire in India. So I didn't come
Mm,
out. I came out in a formal attire, but it wasn't in a suit and a tie.
yeah.
It was something different. So again,
Yeah.
I wanted to show that I was unique and that my speech and story was going to be unique. So that's the one key that I would tell you. Try to be yourself on stage and show your uniqueness.
Mm. The point that you just mentioned, that is quite familiar with the point that I just had when we talked this morning. I just realized that public speaking is just like a platform to help you fully express who you are.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
until that we are able to fully expressing who we are, that's the time that we are about to master public speaking and show our uniqueness on the stage.
Yes.
Right.
And I think something else to add on top of that. So, yes, you get
Mm,
to express yourself, and public speaking for me has been a way for me to express myself in ways that I never thought that I would express myself to basically large group of strangers. But on top of that, it really gives you an opportunity to provide value.
yeah.
And that's really important. So that actually leads me into another point that I would say about if you want to one day become a world champion or just simply do well in competitive speaking,
Mm,
you have to make it a priority to provide value to the people who are hearing you. So if
yeah.
you're going into this contest thinking, oh, I just want to win the world championship of public speaking, I
Mm,
just want the trophy, I want the accolades, you are going to increase the chances that you're not going to do well because
yeah.
your intentions will come through and the audience will be able to feel if you are genuine or not and if you are truly giving them value. But if you
Mm,
prioritize just giving them value, telling them a good story, or giving them great tips and great lessons, the
yeah.
audience will feel that and you will be rewarded for it. It may not
Mm,
be with a trophy, but it can be in other opportunities.
yep. I can see that because it's not our ultimate goal.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, this is very useful experience for those people who would like to join the World Championship of Public Speaking. Yeah. Now let's go back to our main topic today. The COVID-19 has accelerated digital transformation in many countries. And how is it applicable for your country in Vietnam?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think we touched on it a little bit before
Yeah,
with
we did.
America, but I think
Yeah.
specifically for Vietnam, I think it's forcing the world to get smaller.
Yep.
So that's going to allow for audiences like,
Mm,
right, for instance, this is a perfect example. I'm talking to an audience in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And it's because technology is bringing us closer together. So I think as other countries start embracing technology more and build more infrastructure and they have more stable internet connections, and now that that's going to be a norm, I think it's going to be a priority for a lot of countries around the world to
Yeah.
get this to a stronger state. So it's going to work for both. Like Americans, we're going to be more online, but
Mm,
all of the other countries are also going to be online. They're going to try to get online too. So now we're all going to
mm,
be able to connect more. So audience in Vietnam can connect with an audience in America and vice
mm,
versa. And it's not just even for Vietnam. Like I said, this is going to be worldwide. So we can
mm,
connect with people in Japan. We can connect with people in Brazil. We can connect with people in what's another country that
mm.
I don't know. I'm losing my track of what countries exist in the world, but I think we get the idea.
Yeah, I can get that. Yep. I just realized that we're heading to one nation around just across border, and I don't feel that we have border anymore. And
Yeah,
you even need to travel to Vietnam, or I don't even need to travel to the US right now in order to see each other.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I can feel that this is where the world is heading to.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that we have like around 5 more minutes before we finish our live stream this week. And the final question I would like to ask you is that what should corporate professionals prepare for remote working trends?
Yes.
Yeah,
So as you're getting ready to enter into the workforce, you have to keep in mind that even though that you are going to be working remotely, even though you
yeah,
may be working from home more often,
mm,
that does not erase the fact that you are in a professional environment. You
yeah,
still need to present yourself professionally. That means you need to get on camera and you need to conduct yourself professionally still.
mm,
You need to, we talked about facial expressions. You need to make sure that you have good facial expressions, that you
mm,
don't reveal too much with your facial expression, whether negative or positive, uh, but more so negative.
yeah,
But you also want to make sure that you dress the part. You
mm,
don't want to get onto a business meeting in a t-shirt that
yeah,
says something that's not good on it. So you want to make sure that you are dressing appropriately. And another tip that I would say, you want to ensure that you dress appropriately, but if you're
mm,
going to decide not to dress as appropriately for other parts of your body that may not be on camera,
yeah,
make sure that the camera doesn't show it. There have been many occasions where people get on camera and they have a suit on, they have a shirt and a tie on, but they don't have
yeah,
any pants. And they think it's because, okay, I don't have to worry about wearing pants because the camera's not going to show pants. But their camera view clearly shows them not wearing pants. This was actually something that went viral here in America where a guy got on TV, he got on the news, and he didn't have any pants on, even though he had a suit on or a top on. So it definitely be mindful to dress the part. And if you're not going to dress the part, make sure that the camera doesn't show where you're not dressing the
mm,
part.
I see. Intentionally show it or not show it, right?
Exactly.
I see. Uh, Aaron, I think that what you're sharing today is really useful for our corporate professionals and also the members and learners of EIR Public Speaking. I really appreciate that. And I can understand that this is the morning time in the US right now, but you still can share your valuable time with us. And thank you so much, Sharon. Do you have the
Yeah.
final message that you would like to share with our viewers today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that I would want to say to everyone right now is that
Mm,
even in this time of quarantine and social distancing,
yeah.
we still do need to connect with one another. And
Mm,
technology is the way to do that. So
yeah.
if you are a person who isn't as comfortable with technology, I
Mm,
implore you to learn more about it, get yourself
yeah.
comfortable with it, because as we said before, this is the way that the world is moving, and you
Yeah.
do not want to be left behind.
Awesome, Aaron. So this is Aaron Beverly, the world champion of public speaking in 2019. And if you would like to ask him any question, just search his Facebook, Aaron Beverly, and I'm sure that he's very friendly and willing to share with you anything he knows.
Yep.
And and also one point that is he's going to travel to Vietnam on this October 31st because he's going to have a keynote speech at RMIT University, which is organized by EIY Public Speaking. And we welcome you to come to our event at that time in order to see Aaron Beverly in person.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is Aaron Beverly, everyone, and our next speaker gonna be, uh, let me remember, that is Katani, the world champion of public speaking in 2005, right?
15.
15, yeah, 2015. So he gonna talk about how we can add humor in the workplace. And he gonna join us in our live stream session on next Thursday night from 7:30 until 8:30 p.m. That is May May 15, right? May 15. So see you everyone on our public speaking page next week. And thank you so much, Aaron.
No problem. Thank you. Take care,
Yeah,
everyone.
have a great day to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.